Good Shabbos. Unfortunately, we're still in lockdown. Doesn't look like we'll be getting out of this soon enough, even for Tisha B'Av, which is, of course, a week from Sunday, the fast of Tisha B'Av, where we commemorate the destruction of both Beis Hamikdash, both temples in Jerusalem. This Shabbat, many shuls, the shuls will read, those that are open, will read Parshat Matot-Massei, a double portion, within which there's a fascinating mention of the yahrzeit of someone, and the only yahrzeit that is actually explicitly mentioned in the Torah. We know, for example, that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away in Zion Adar from the Talmud. We know that David HaMelech passed away in Shavuos from the Talmud. But in this week's portion, one that those of us who are not going to shul, because we can't, will read at home, the Chumash that we read at home, we will see that the Torah mentions that on the Rosh Chodesh Av, which is tomorrow, is the yahrzeit of Aaron HaKohen. And the question is, why, of all the Jewish leaders throughout history, or throughout the time period of the Bible, of the Torah, does it not mention the yahrzeit of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, or Moshe, only of Aaron? And why in this week's portion? Aaron actually passed away 3 weeks ago's portion, Parshas Chukas. Why is it that this week, Parshas Matot-Massei, is when we mention Aaron's passing? And the explanation given is that the Torah wants to teach us that as we enter into the 9 days, what we call the 9 days, where the mourning for the temple takes up a whole new level, where in Ashkenazi communities we don't eat meat or drink wine other than on Shabbat, and the significance and seriousness of the destruction of the temple takes on a whole different level. It is at that time that we mention that this is the day of Aaron's passing, because we need to learn from Aaron in order to undo the negativity of the 9 days and of Tisha B'Av. So what do we need to learn from Aaron HaKohen specifically that undoes the negativity of this time period? Aaron, we're told in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, was Oyev Shalom v'Reidev Shalom. He loved peace and pursued peace. Oyev Sabriyas and Mekarvan l'Torah. He loved people and would bring them closer to Torah. And what we need to learn from Aaron, his unique way of looking at another Jew, and his unique way of interacting or creating peace amongst people. And the Medrash tells us that Aaron would see a husband and wife who were estranged from each other, or would find two partners, two people who had a fight. Aaron would go to one party and say, I heard from your husband, he feels so terrible about what he did to you, and he wants to come back together with you, etc. And the same thing with two partners. And then he would go to the other one and say, oh, I heard from your wife how bad she feels about not being together, and how bad she feels about what she said or reacted to what you did. And by virtue of that, when they then came together, they remembered what Aaron said, and therefore it brought them close to each other. It brought them to care and love one another again. And the question is, how does Aaron do that? You're not allowed to lie. There is a statement in the Talmud, you're allowed to change for the sake of peace. But it's not change. He actually lied. He said something that they never said. And what Aaron, the Rebbe explains that what Aaron saw was the following. He saw within the other person that we need to reveal and express and bring to the fore the person who they really were. when the husband and wife got married, they loved each other. That means deep down, they love each other. It's just that other matters got involved to create this state of friction and dislike and even hatred. And the same thing with two partners. They came together because they liked each other. And now that they're separated from one another is because something else has overtaken. So to Aaron's view, he took what the Rambam teaches us. That's for the Rambam tells us that's when a Jew, for example, someone for halachic reasons has to bring a certain sacrifice or divorce his wife, and he doesn't want to. So the law is you force him until he says I want to. So the Rambam says, what kind of game is this? We force him till he says I want to. He says he doesn't want to. The Rambam brings something that is key in so many areas of life, brought in Chassidus many, many times. The Rambam says that the truth is that every Jew wants to do what the Torah and what God wants of him. It's only that he has an evil inclination that gets in the way, and it forces him as an external force outside of him to stop doing what he really wants to do. So therefore, when he is, so to speak, forced into saying, I want to do what's right, you're only revealing what he really wants. And once you reveal what he really wants, then you can, then it's done out of free will, because that's what his real free will is. When Aaron saw two Jews fighting, he didn't see their externality. He saw who they really were. And so he ignored that external part of them and saw the truth behind who they were. There's a story of a fellow who came to a little town in Neville, and he walks into the shul and he sees a beautiful scene. This one is davening, and this one is learning, and this one is meditating, contemplating. And he sees two people who are sitting and studying together beautifully. Later on, he goes out to the marketplace and sees these two Jews who were studying together beautifully actually were fighting with each other in the marketplace, because they each had a shop associated with, let's say, they were selling fish, and they would fight over customers. And to the extent that they actually got very heated. And it seemed like these people hate each other. She's wondering, what's going on here? They love each other, they hate each other. That night he went back to shul and he sees these two people learning again, together with love. So he approaches them and says, what's going on? I saw you fighting like crazy in the marketplace today. He says, that wasn't us fighting, that was our rubles fighting. Aaron saw that even if the rubles fight, the people can care and love for them, for each other. There is a explanation of the Tzemach Tzedek, of the third Chabad Rebbe, on the mitzvah of Ahavta l'racha kamocha, loving your fellow as yourself. So the question is asked, how could you love someone like yourself? Most of the commentaries say, well, it doesn't mean love him as yourself. It means treat him like be kind to him like you would for yourself, and so on, because it's hard for people to understand how you can love someone like you love yourself. Tzemach Tzedek says the Torah is teaching us something very, very important, very, very powerful. What happens? Think about the psychology of what happens when you do something that you're ashamed of. What happens when you do something that is wrong and you don't feel good about it? In most cases, we might feel that way for a little bit, but then we get over it. And as King Solomon says, Al kol pshaim tchasav, on all sins, love covers over. Because I love myself, that's the human condition, we love ourselves. Therefore, we overlook our shortcomings, or basically we say, yes, I might have these shortcomings, but that doesn't define me. That's not who I am. And therefore, you can still go around trying to bring pleasure to yourself or do things that are enjoyable to you and so on. You don't, in most cases, feel so low about yourself and despise yourself because of something you said or did that was not right. So why is it that when it comes to someone else, that's not the case? We tend to start defining that other person by what they said or did. We say, yeah, we think about it. Oh, yeah, that's who he is. That's typical of how he conducts himself. And we start disliking or despising someone because of something they did or said that might not have been right, that maybe is bad. But we begin to define them by that, which when it comes to ourselves, we don't. So when the Torah says, says in Son of Tzedek, what does it mean? It says, treat another person like you would yourself. In yourself, when you did something wrong, you wouldn't define yourself by it. You still love yourself. The same thing with that other. Doesn't mean ignore what they did or said, but don't define them by that. That's not who they are. This is what Aaron teaches us. And this is how we dispel and change the negativity that brought about the destruction of the temple and which will bring about the rebuilding of the third temple. When we see another's faults and negativity, we don't define them by it. We still love them in any way because we love who they are, and we know that deep down, the negative is not who they are. It doesn't define them. It's not them. There's a story of a little town in Russia. There was an orphan boy and orphan girl who got married or getting married, got engaged. And the police chief decided that he's going to take the young man and take him and send him to the army. And of course, the whole town was in an uproar about it. How could he do something so cruel? This young girl is going to lose her mate. This girl who doesn't have does not have parents. Here they are, just got engaged, they're getting married to each other. How could you do that? So they came and beseeched the police chief to let him free, and he says, I'll do so for 1,000 ruble, which is a lot of money at that time. Well, they don't know where to get the money. The chuppah is set, and the Alter Rebbe actually came to participate in this chuppah. When he came to town, they told him the story. He says, okay, let's collect the money. So are there wealthy people here who can contribute? And basically, there were no wealthy people in town that could give that kind of money. But then the townspeople said, there is one very wealthy man. However, he's extremely miserly. Whenever anyone comes to him, he gives them this rusty copper coin that they just throw away, that people just throw back into his face. And he has never, ever participated in any way in community needs. So Alter Rebbe says, we're going to. So out of respect, the rabbi of the community goes together with the Alter Rebbe to this man's home. And they come, they say, we're coming to collect for this orphan and orphan girl, and to be able to support them as they're getting married. The fellow says, yes, I'd like to participate. And he goes to his safe and he takes out this copper coin and he gives it to Alter Rebbe. The rabbi gets enraged and he wants to throw the coin back, but Alter Rebbe kind of says, hold on. He says, thank you so much. I really appreciate your participation in this mitzvah. They get up to go. And as they get up to go, the guy says, oh, wait a moment. And he gives them a ruble. And as they walk out the door, the guy says, wait a moment. And he gives them 10 rubles. And as they walk down the walkway outside the home, he comes back and he calls them back in. And he finally gives them the entire amount, the entire 1,000 rubles they needed. And he says, please sit down for a moment. I want to explain to you my story. He says, 50 years ago, when I was a young man, and I started to work, I was earning just a little bit. And a poor man came to me and asked me for a donation. I put my hand in my pocket. All I had was this copper coin. And I gave it to him. And he looked at it in disdain and threw it back in my face. And I made a vow then, being that he didn't appreciate the amount of effort and work it took for me to make that little coin, I am not going to give any charity until someone accepts with grace and dignity this copper coin. From then till now, whenever a poor man came to me or any community organizations came to me, I would give him this copper coin. They all throw it back in my face, which did not allow me to go against my vow. So I am grateful not only for the mitzvah opportunity you gave me to help these orphans, but the fact that you undid my vow, that I once again can be part of the community and to participate financially in all the needs of the community. And what the Alter Rebbe saw and was able to show to everyone else is that even if someone seems to be doing something so miserly and so negative, that is not who they are. That isn't what defines them. We have to be able to look past it. And the Alter Rebbe was able to reveal the true Jew, the person who was a generous man, a person who really wanted to be part of that community. And so as we come to the beginning of the 9 days at the Tisha B'Av, we have to think within ourselves, what can we do in how we view others, and therefore how we act with others, that expresses our view on the true personality and goodness that's within them, as opposed to the possible negative externality that isn't who they are. That's why the Torah tells us the yahrzeit of Aaron and Shabbos to teach us how do we overcome and undo all the negativity of this time by being students of Aaron, to be able to see in others their goodness, their soul, their neshama, and through that, through acting with them and looking at them in that way, we will actually bring it out to the fore. I wish everyone a good Shabbos. Stay safe, stay healthy, be happy, and hopefully we will see each other in person soon. Shabbos.